Hello, today I'll be reviewing the Ben Shapiro's review of the movie Dune. And I do realize that I'm a year late with this video, but today I just woke up and I realized that this is actually a fun topic, and um, yeah, I just decided I have to do this review. And I just want to start by saying, although me and Ben, we, let's say, differ when it comes to our political perspectives, but where we do agree is that the movie was really good. We both like the movie. We both think that the movie was beautifully shot, beautifully directed, and it was in some areas almost perfectly cast. I really liked the Harkonnens, especially, and Jason Momoa. So yeah, we both actually agree that the movie is good. But where we differ is our interpretation of the movie. So let's see how Ben Shapiro actually sees the message behind the movie.
Spoilers abound. Essentially, the plot of the movie goes like this. You have House Atreides, which is led by Oscar Isaac. His son is Timothy Chalamet, and his concubine, who he never married, is Rebecca Ferguson. Right there on one side. On the other side, you have House Harkonnen, which is kind of a stand-in for the Soviets, kind of. So these two.
Wait a minute, my friend. So, uh, like, I actually understand why he thinks that. So, the argument is the Fremen are something like a desert people. They have their religion that sounds like Islam in many aspects. They have holy war. Uh, Paul is kind of like a science fiction version of the Muhammad, of the Muslim prophet. Okay, I get it, but to say that the Harkonnens are Soviets, well, okay, let me explain why does it make sense. So the first argument one might make is the fact that the novel was written in 1965, before the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. But okay, let's even go with the death of an author hypothesis. So death of an author hypothesis just claims that it doesn't matter what the author intended. What matters is, does the allegory fit? Well, the answer is no, in my opinion. So the Harkonnens to me look like a Soviet propaganda about capitalism. Uh, and I actually do have a video on rich peasants in the Soviet Union and what happened to them. And well, let's just say it wasn't nice what happened to them. But if you look at the propaganda posters about rich peasants, they look like Baron Harkonnen. Um, they are extremely fat. They eat while the others starve, which is like uh, many people did starve in the Soviet Union as a result of the many things like droughts and inefficient economic policy and deliberate starvation in the end. But yeah, so the Harkonnens are to me like this a caricature of evil capitalism, and they view the Fremen as subhuman, which is something that actually the capitalist colonialists are famous for doing. Like they remind me of the Belgium colonizing the Congo, um, which is yeah exactly the approach that the Harkonnens had, which is why the kind of the mainstream view of Dune is that it's an allegory for colonialism, because I mean, the most important difference between the Harkonnens and the Soviets is that the Soviets at least justified their imperialism by saying they want to spread equality. So they proclaim gender equality after they occupy Afghanistan, they prohibit child marriage. They do some progressive stuff as well, but I'm not saying that that justifies their invasion. I mean, they uh, ended up in the end killing for more than 1 million people in their very brutal war waged against the people of Afghanistan. So yeah, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that their ideology was very different. And I mean, in some movies, it actually even makes sense to say that they might be an allegory for communism, like the invasions of the body snatchers, for example. Like I heard a theory that the movie is a metaphor for communism, and that makes more sense because the movie was written in the 1950s, like Red Scare and all of that stuff. And the body snatchers are like a collectivist hive mind that wants to take over American society and stuff like that. So I could actually see that being an allegory for communism, but the Harkonnens are like a classic example of evil capitalist colonialism, and even Frank Herbert himself said that he was inspired by the Libyan uprising against fascism, but he was inspired by many things, by the Umayyad Caliphate expanding, by the Lawrence of Arabia fighting against the Ottomans. Okay, but let's just see Ben's commentary on what he didn't like. Yeah, here we go.
The biggest issue with the movie is that it ends kind of randomly. Now, we knew because it was called Dune Part 1 that there will be a Part 2. And so some people are saying, well, so what? It cut off in the middle. Like, why is that a big deal? The answer is that it's not a big deal that it cut off in the middle. The problem is that it cut off in the middle of a story beat, which is a very weird place to actually cut off the movie. So it feels strangely 15 minutes too long and 2.5 hours too short. If you're going to do the whole story, it's got to be probably 5 or 6 hours. But it made a great miniseries. If you're going to cut off the movie in the middle, then really they should have cut off the movie maybe 20 minutes sooner. He starts to meet with the Fremen. They find.
Okay, I get where he's coming from. It's not an unreasonable take to say that the movie should have ended sooner or maybe a bit later, but to me the movie ended in a fine place. I mean, Paul has just killed a man for the first time in his life. He starts wakening up his inner messiah, Kwisatz Haderach. So yeah, to me, the movie ended in a fine place. But I mean, the main disagreement I have with Ben Shapiro is not our takes on whether or not the movie is good or whether or not it ended in a good way. But yeah, his understanding of the allegory is slightly crazy. But I guess that's the consequence of Ben seeing communism in all these weird places, like the Ben Shapiro, like the Bernie Sanders movement, for example. I remember watching his video where he argues that the universal healthcare is the first step towards communism and stuff like that. So he also sees wokeness as communism and stuff like that. So I guess he sees communism in many places, and he sees it in the Harkonnens as well. But yeah, that's a metaphor that just doesn't hold water if you look at it more closely and actually analyze what the Soviets did and what other forms of imperialism did. But yeah, okay, this is my review of Ben Shapiro's review of the movie Dune.